All right, welcome in, everybody. It's Sports Daily on a Friday, on an all of the sudden abbreviated Friday here with you as we make our way through a rainy Friday that is greatly appreciated. We'll get some Wichita State baseball potentially in a makeup at 10 a.m. from yesterday. So that means you have Tommy and I for an hour. I'm Jacob Albracht alongside Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers producing. Still plenty that we can get to in an hour. Glad to be here with you, both on KFH, where you can call us on the IHOP hotline at 869-1240, and on our video streams on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can comment there as well. Shout out to one of our great listeners, Tommy, who sent this Cowboys-themed KFH mini helmet.
What?
Yeah.
No
cool
way. That's pretty incredible. I just am wondering why you got one and I didn't.
I think that's pretty apparent, Tommy. Pretty obvious.
Wow.
But we don't need to dig. You don't need to dig into that. But we appreciate.
You're making
that. Very
me feel
cool.
real bad about myself here to start off the day.
No, it's okay. It's all right. It's all good. We do it for the people here on this show. 869-1240 is that IHOP hotline. Glad to be here with you. So weather's going to be a big part of everything today, pretty much. We've got Wichita State softball trying to begin their postseason today, where meteorologist Jad Chambers tells me we could have a little rain in Stillwater. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that, obviously. And it'll be interesting. Baseball was affected yesterday. They're trying to finish up the conference schedule. You want baseball to get it in, not an urgent deal, Tommy, because they're going to not be an at-large, really. So, you want to get those games in, all of those things, but the attention sort of shifts to Stillwater just a little bit there on that. But it's weather day, but we'll take the rain anytime we can get it. We need it badly, and we'll adjust. No big deal.
Yeah, it was nice driving into the office this morning, and the rain fall in, and just it's been a while since we've seen rain like this. So I know that in other parts of the country, I know we had rain in Florida that postponed the Shocker baseball game last night. Potentially rain in Stillwater today. But I'll tell you what, it's nice to see at least here in this part of the country.
Yeah, it's really cool to get it, to wake up to that. It's been a while, so we're happy to have it. It's an interesting time of year because when you get to the postseason, it can have a real impact. Like when you're talking about Wichita State and when they might be able to play, and does the championship happen on time? How much does it need to get delayed? As it's scheduled, Wichita State softball will play Nebraska tonight at 6:00. And then would play potentially a couple games Saturday, and then we get into Sunday for a championship. It's all, it's all up there in the air, so we'll keep our eye on that. But the NBA conference finals continue. We had game 2 of the Western Conference Finals, and I think a very different feeling today than after game 1. Not because series is over by any means, and I know teams down 0-2 have only won 6 times ever. Well, LeBron James has been a part of 2 of those 6. So I don't think the series is by any means over. What I think is a little more deflating for the Lakers, Tommy, is they really had to feel like that was one that they could have. They won, the first half. They were right there leading going into the fourth quarter, and then Jamal Murray went nuclear on them and had, 23 points in the fourth quarter. He could not miss. And it's the Jamal Murray game. Everybody's loving it. Everything looked great. And, it felt like it was the Murray game and not Jokic. And then, oh, yeah, Jokic has another triple double. So
Right.
Denver did a really, really nice job of not letting that game get away from them, sticking around. I mean, really, Tommy, they trailed the whole way until that fourth quarter, but they still got it done. And that's what really good teams do, furthering the case that Denver absolutely is the one seed here. Because they got it done in a game they could have easily lost.
Well, yeah, and on top of that too, I mean, they leave Denver with a 2-0 series lead, when they head to LA, and so they've got to feel great about that, obviously, getting both games at home. If you're the Lakers, you would have liked to split the series at home before you head back to LA. And the Lakers had it in the palm of their hands, and that's what makes Denver so difficult, is that not only do you have Jokic, we can sing the praises of Jokic all day long, but not only do the Nuggets have him with the triple double, but then they have other weapons and they're so balanced, and from top to bottom, they're just a complete roster. And Jamal Murray, when it mattered most, came up clutch late in the game and, was able to get the victory for the Nuggets. And so I think that as the series shifts to Los Angeles, of course, having a commanding 2-0 series lead is incredibly important for Denver. Really, I think you feel fairly confident that all you have to do if you're Denver is maybe try to steal one game in LA to send the series back to Denver to clinch it at home. That's kind of where things stand right now. And really, I think that if you're the Lakers, I don't know if it's quite time to shift into desperation mode or not, but you've got to figure out how to try to slow down the pace a little bit more, because Denver just wants to just push the pace nonstop.
Well, and I mean, I think the pace significantly slowed down, because what did we get to? Like 132 in the first game, and this one was 108, 103. So, I think the Lakers accomplished that, and which is why they probably led most of the game. They just couldn't hold on to it. It's just interesting. The narrative this morning as I'm tuning around is that LeBron James didn't play well, and he didn't shoot the three well. But I don't think he was horrible. He was pretty good defensively. He had 4 steals and 2 blocks. I think that it's look, and we both know this. Denver's better team, right? Like Denver, top to bottom, is a better team.
Yeah.
The question in this series has always been, does LeBron have some of that magic left? And, to a lesser degree, I think Anthony Davis. And then, what does that mean for this series? Is that enough to overtake Denver, who does have, I think, a better top to bottom roster? Again, Denver's starting 5 is really good. And Jamal Murray, just a reminder of how good he is. Jokic is, otherworldly right now. I think it was his 13th playoff triple double. I mean, are you kidding me? But Murray was a reminder again of a guy and how critical he is. But they can do so many different things to you. The Lakers are not out of this series. LeBron James has been in this situation before and is maybe the most capable as a player of rallying troops and getting through this. The Lakers now just can't lose a home game. I mean, that's what it comes down to for them in this series. If they lose a home game, this series will be over. But it's not yet, and they just have to win some at home here. But Denver's got to feel great. It almost flipped upside down, Tommy. After game 1, it's like, yeah, Denver survived, right? Denver survived LA in a game they played nearly perfectly offensively. Tonight, or after last night, it's LA couldn't survive, right? Like Denver did not, they were out of that game. It felt like they were going to lose that game for sure. And they just kept digging away. And that's really good feeling if you're a Nuggets fan. Happy for them this morning. But it was a good game. Like, we got a second good game in this series that came down to the end. Austin Reeves was really good again. They at least in spurts for sure. 5 of 9 from 3, 22 points. Austin Reeves is going to make a ton of money in the NBA, by the way. Like, I think they even mentioned that in the broadcast last night. Like, holy cow, this guy's going to get hit free agency and get a big fat contract. I wonder when I'm going to look that up, but he was good. We saw Christian Brown in there early in the game in the first quarter, which is good to see him out there quickly. But cool local flavor to this series too.
Down the stretch, in that game, as kind of going back and forth. I think if you're a Lakers fan, you almost wanted the ball in Austin Reeves' hands more
Yeah.
than you wanted it in LeBron or AD's hands,
Well,
right?
in
I
that
mean,
game, for sure. Yeah.
right, and I'm talking down the stretch, right? Like,
Mhm.
LeBron was taking some contested threes that were not dropping, at all. And had a tough time doing that. Anthony Davis, I think, was 4 of 15 from the field last night. Austin Reeves was the most effective shooter on that roster. And in crunch time, if you're a Lakers fan, you probably, like I said, wanted the ball in Austin Reeves' hands, to be able to get it done, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, it is. And I'm just looking it up. He's a restricted free agent next year. So the Lakers, I think, can keep him. They'll stick around. And then he's going to be a really interesting player to watch what happens with his career. But it is. There's local flavor in this game that's been fun to watch. Christian Brown played that early little stretch and then didn't play again. It's amazing to me, Tommy, when we think back to Christian Brown, like, because just in that little spurt we saw him early, like he just absolutely belongs athletically. Did you remember back to him as a young player at KU? Could you have ever imagined that? Because I didn't. Like, I never saw him that way until right at the end there in the national championship and those things. And then now that he's there, like, absolutely. It's funny to me that, and maybe I'm in the minority there, but early on, I would have never thought of Brown as this kind of NBA guy, but he definitely is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he definitely grew, during his time at Kansas, right? To a point to where I think there were flashes of that. I mean, there's a reason why, he left KU when he did, because he was a viable NBA prospect, and has, I think, shown during his time at, in Denver, that he can contribute, whether that's playing 5 minutes a game like he did last night, or playing 15, 20 minutes a game. He provides a spark off the bench. And I think that's probably going to be his role moving forward, in his career, is that guy that can give you energy off the bench, provide that spark when needed. And that's a really important feature to have. You have a roster player who can come off the bench, give the top guys a little bit of a spell, and be able to get that energy level, up and going. I think that's big.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. All right. So Eastern Conference Finals before we take our first break here. Game 2 is tonight. You seem to think this now the Celtics have moved to -9 in this game. I can't figure out why the Heat would still be a 9-point dog. I get it that you favor the Celtics, but based on everything we've seen with Miami, to give them 9 points seems like insane to me. I'm not going to bet because I don't have a good grasp on NBA betting. I'm not very good at it, but that seems nuts. I think Miami, even if they don't win, keeping it within 9, but I think there's a pretty good chance Miami wins. But I also don't think, Tommy, that this is in this. I think even more than the West, like it's not going to really affect much because I think Miami could go up 2-0 and lose this series for sure. Because I think Boston's better roster, but Miami will have, I believe, pretty certainly a psychological advantage like the rest of the series, no matter what's happening, because they're just there. They've got the better coach. Jimmy Butler is one of the greatest playoff players we've ever seen. And I think psychologically they have an advantage here. Now, talent-wise, is that enough to overcome? I don't know. But I think Miami's got a pretty good shot tonight.
I don't think there's any chance at all on God's green earth that the Miami Heat take a 2-0 lead. I just don't see it happening. On the road in Boston, and with Boston knowing, how dire the situation is right now, you cannot lose both games at home and then go on the road to Miami against a Miami team that is, oh, by the way, the number 8 seed in the playoffs. So I don't see any scenario possible. And I know Eric Spoelstra is a better coach. Jimmy Butler has been otherworldly during the playoffs. I get all of that. I understand all of it. I just don't see a scenario where Boston, as the 2 seed at home, will let the Heat get a 2-0 series lead before the series shifts back to Miami.
Yeah, they did not do that against Milwaukee, by the way. They won that game 1, and then Milwaukee got them good in the second
Yeah.
game. So it could be, it could be that. Maybe that's why.
And I don't
I'm
have any
not.
doubt that the series is gonna be competitive. I think it will
Well,
be.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I
I
mentioned
just mean
yesterday
in
it's gonna
game
be a
2.
dogfight. I just
Yeah.
don't think that in this scenario, knowing what is at stake, and knowing the massive letdown if Boston loses both games at home, I just don't see that happening. I think the Celtics win, and I think they win handily. I think that's why they're favored by 9.
I think when you have a psychological advantage, like I think Miami does, it's these kinds of moments where like everybody in the world thinks Boston will rebound and have a huge game 2. But that's where Miami can really like they can amp up like Miami plays with absolutely no pressure whatsoever tonight. I mean, like none, because nobody thinks they're winning this game. Whether they can cover and whether they can win are two different things. But I think they have a better chance to win than that, very public popular opinion on that. But we'll see. I think what I am excited about, I don't think this series is going to be a letdown, which is what we feared going
Yeah,
in. I think
no,
I think
I
we're
don't
getting
think
a
it
good
will either.
series. Austin, who I know is a great hockey fan, wants to know about that 4 overtime hockey game last night.
Oh boy.
Florida, the Panthers, and the Hurricanes. Here's what I'll say about the Stanley Cup playoffs. I love them. I love to turn them on. I know nothing about any of the teams anymore. There was a time in my life where, probably it was before the strike is when it was. I knew all the players, right? Like I knew all the players and I knew them because I played the video games, right? I knew who guys were. I had, my favorite teams and all that stuff. I don't know any of that anymore. Like, I know the stars kind of, but what I can say about the Stanley Cup playoffs and why I love them so much is I don't need to know anything just to flip it on and be highly entertained. And that's what the Stanley Cup playoffs give us. And I do love that. And yes, Florida does come away with a
It
4
was crazy.
overtime, which I believe was a record. I think
Yeah,
that was the longest game ever.
they played basically 2 full hockey games
Which
and
is
then some, to the point to where, like, I was watching some clips this morning on, social media, and you had, like, the studio crew, Wayne Gretzky, just basically like, "Can we get this done?" Like, on the air
yeah,
saying, "Can
like
somebody score?"
I'm
The
tired.
PA yeah, the PA announcer, I think it was when they were going into maybe the 4th overtime, came on the PA and said, "I'm so sorry, everyone." Like, just, like, trying to get this done so people can get home. I don't think it finished until, like, what, 1 AM, something
I
like that?
later than I
Yeah,
stayed up, and I stayed up
yeah.
late because I got a sick kid. But it was not. Yeah, it was nuts. All right, let's take a quick break. It's raining outside. It's a little dreary. We haven't done this in a while. Jad, let's give away some coffee. Let's give away some coffee drinks. The HTO Brew House. You can get the coffee drinks only at the East location, but we'll give away a couple of free coffees here. The weather's inspired me to do that. HTO East, it's over 21st and 127th. Jad will get us a winner for those during the break here. 869-1240, the number there. We'll come back. There is local flavor to keep an eye on in the PGA Championship. We'll tell you about it when we return on Sports Daily.
Daily on KFH.
Tommy, you had like a moment of total zen last night. And I'm very
I did. Yeah, it was incredible. We went to the Wind Surge game last night. Took our 2-year-old, and it was the first game that he had went to where I felt like he kind of had a little bit better of an idea on what was going on. He wasn't an infant, kind of thing. And I was worried he was going to be running around like crazy and not really into it. That kid, I'll tell you what, sat on my lap the entire game, watched the game, enjoyed it. Just was awesome. I mean, just like locked in, cheered for the teams, drank his juice, was totally chill. It was awesome. Yeah. That being said, I think we've lost Jacob. So he asked me about the Wind Surge game last night, and then I think we lost him. So hey, welcome back, by the way, to Sports Daily here on KFH. Tommy Castor, Jacob Albracht will be rejoining us here shortly. And if you're just now tuning in, by the way, wanted to remind you it's an abbreviated version of Sports Daily here this morning, because we do have Shocker Baseball coming up here at 10 o'clock with Mike Kennedy and the gang down in Florida for the Shockers in action after that postponement last night. And that was, definitely, we talked about it in the first segment about how important it is, to get these games in, both baseball and softball for that matter, the regional down in Stillwater. And depending on what kind of situation we have weather-wise down in Stillwater later on today. But we will have coverage of the Shocker baseball game coming up here at 10 o'clock this morning.
That's
here
right.
on KFH. And
in fact, as far as a weather update's concerned, I have heard from Florida. I've been talking back and forth there. Looks like they're going to at least get this underway. They say they might earliest they might get some weather is like 2 o'clock or so.
And one thing that we were talking about during the break, that I think if we can get it set up would be really cool, would be to have a quick conversation with Mike Kennedy right before they go live for pregame. So, definitely, that would be cool to get that pregame started that way. So that'll be coming up here in just a few minutes or so as we're trying to get Jacob here reconnected. Jad, I know one thing that Jacob wanted to discuss, and of course, I'm always open to talking golf and talking the PGA Championship. So Sam Stevens, who is a Wichita kid, of course, is in the PGA Championship. And I don't know how much, Jad, you followed golf or the PGA Championship, but it's been fun to watch Sam Stevens over the course of, I don't know, probably the last several months or so. Actually, the last couple of years he's been on the PGA Tour. And I don't know if he's really getting, I know locally he'll get the attention that I think he deserves, but I don't know about nationally how much attention he's getting, besides the stars of the game. But definitely fun to watch a Wichita kid competing in the PGA Championship.
Yeah, Tommy, sorry, I'm just rejoining you. My home is having a hemorrhage right now. I couldn't even get a call to go through to try to rejoin you there, but I'm on the phone now, so I'm jumping in. I think you're back on Sam Stevens here.
Talking Sam Stevens. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's had a great year, by the way. He's like 55th in the world right now, and in the PGAs, we'll see what the cut line ends up doing today. So he's not going to play. He or Gary Woodland, by the way, who we always pay attention to with local interest. They will be later afternoon tee time. So I don't know. You know more about this stuff. The cut line, what was it at yesterday? +2. It's I would imagine, right. Tommy, don't you think it will go down just a little bit? More like +1 even or something like that. And both of those guys very much within striking distance of being into the weekend.
Right. Well, I do.
Nobody's throwing
right.
darts. Nobody has an amazingly low score right now.
Right. I know, Bryson DeChambeau led after round one with 4 under. I think it's going to depend upon how the course is playing. A championship, course is always going to be set up significantly more difficult. The projected cut line right now is at 3 over. And Sam Stevens is at 1 over.
Oh, wow.
Shot that 1 over yesterday, the 71. So he'll go off a little bit later on today. And I would imagine as we continue through on this Friday, that cut line will hover 2 over, 3 over, 4 over. I mean, I think it's obviously going to depend, like I said before, on how the course is playing.
Yeah, and if it went, that means it's not playing well today, right? Because it's going the way it normally doesn't go. So that's good news. And I don't know. You get these tournaments like this where nobody's really scoring. You get one good round and then just, shoot par or close to it the rest of the way. That it's maybe not enough, but it might be enough for a top 20 here. And it's interesting. We've got this Wichita guy. He's from here. He's back here, if I understand it correctly. So that makes these, to me, like when I watch golf, if I've got local interest, it does tune me in far more, even than like when the stars are good, right? Like when we have local interest in a major, there's not much better than that as you're watching, like that connection to have a rooting interest. I've always been that way with Ryan Palmer, as you know, but I hope that we get that bad. That'd be fantastic. But yeah, good chances. It'll be an afternoon tee time for both Steven and Woodland, who are very much within the realm of making the weekend cut. So we'll keep an eye on them. But where does the PGA Championship for you of the majors? Where does it fall in? Because to me, it's probably 4 of 4. It's probably 4 of 4 for me.
It's probably 4 of 4 for me as well. It's probably, I don't know. When I say my least favorite, it's still a major championship. So I'm going to be locked in. I'm going to watch it. Right. I would say it's more exciting to me now than it used to be because of the fact that it was played in Tulsa last year and I went for the final round and it was incredible. That definitely bumped it up a little bit on my list as far as like excitement level and that sort of thing. But I would still say, I mean, it's definitely for me going to rank behind the Masters. It's probably going to rank. I mean, it's going to rank behind all of them just because the Masters and the tradition and history there, the Open, the US Open, because of how tough it typically is. And that's always fun, how brutal that course, whatever course they're playing usually is. And then with the British Open, just the typically the link style of golf that they'll, go and play overseas. So I would say for me, it still probably ranks 4 of 4, but it's a lot more exciting now that I've actually gotten to witness it, in person.
And sometimes that just depends on who's in the mix, right? Like if we had a Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, whatever showdown, of the big guns on that, it's going to be better than a bunch of no names at the British Open, right? So we'll see. Right. A lot of golf to be played there, but certainly if it's not on your radar and you didn't realize that, put Stevens on your radar because there is local flavor in that PGA Championship coming through for sure. We're going to take a little bit earlier break because we've got immediately following us Wichita State baseball. So we're going to take you right up to that. So we don't want to leave ourselves no time at the end of the show. So we'll take a break now. Speaking of baseball, let's do some WinSearch vouchers. We're feeling generous here on this Friday edition. So we'll give something else away here. WinSearch vouchers, 2 or 4 packs, game of your choice. Chad will get you a winner on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. First caller during the break. We'll be back with more Sports Daily.
The fun of connectivity. We're back, baby. We're back. Welcome back into Sports Daily. It's Albracht and Castor. We are abbreviated today, and immediately following the show here, we will get to Shocker Baseball as they now get a doubleheader today to make up the game that was rained out yesterday. So we'll join Mike Kennedy here in just a second, give you a bit of a pregame show for Wichita State UCF, the final series of the year. And we'll do that in just a minute. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline here. We appreciate everybody tuning in on our video stream, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. Happy to be here with you and have you to be a part of this abbreviated Sports Daily. As we look out to Orlando, first let's let Mike Kennedy put on his meteorologist hat and focus on baseball for a second. We've got Mike ready to go on the broadcast here in about 10 minutes. But Mike, are we going to get? Do you think we're going to get all three of these games in this weekend? All right, we'll connect with Mike in just a few minutes. We're doing something on the fly here. We've got people connected all over. We haven't done that since we've been here. So we'll try and connect with Mike in just a bit. But baseball finishes up, Tommy. They've got 3 here at UCF, and it should be, if all goes well, today with a doubleheader. 10 a.m., 1 o'clock, which you'll hear, and then tomorrow at 5 o'clock. That's the plan. And then, of course, the AAC tournament will begin quickly next week. So that's also in Florida. And then for softball, whether like it is here in Stillwater is a bit in play, you've got the regional starting for Wichita State softball. And you've got Oklahoma State, the host team, playing at 3, and the Shockers taking on Nebraska at 6. So for softball, Tommy, this is interesting because they end up in a regional where they're 4-0 against the teams collectively in there. Now, they have not played UMBC, who's the 4th team in the regional, but they beat Oklahoma State twice. They beat Nebraska twice. You feel good about that, but as Christy Bredbender pointed out yesterday in the media availability, everyone's excited about that, but it's hard to beat teams 3 times. And now we're going to have to do that twice, basically, if they can go through. So for softball, a lot of familiarity here, but that goes both ways, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've got the experience under their belts to be able to beat a team like Oklahoma State because they've done it twice already this season. I go back to the conversation that I remember we had when it was the rematch, the second time that Wichita State played Oklahoma State. And the conversation was, they beat, Oklahoma State. I believe the first game was in Stillwater, right? They went on the road first and beat them. And then the thought was coming back to Wichita, man, how hungry is Oklahoma State going to be, to try to get that revenge on the Shocker softball squad, and Wichita State was able to beat them a second time. So that was the conversation then. I think that's the same conversation now to an extent. Back in Stillwater, they're hosting a regional. Oklahoma State is. They know that Wichita State has beat them twice this season, and there's going to be a challenge on their hands, to try to get that done.
Got to get through Nebraska first.
True,
they got Nebraska a couple times, but Nebraska is no slouch. Nobody in this tournament is going to be a slouch, and hopefully Wichita State quickly shakes off their first losing streak that they've had since mid-February. All right, now let's go out to Florida. We'll join Mike Kennedy out there in Orlando. Orlando's supposed to be sunny Florida. Are we going to get 3 games in, you think, this weekend, Mike?
Well, it looks pretty good for that prospect. Yeah, it's sunny right now. It was sunny when they halted the game in the first inning last night, but there were some pretty severe-looking clouds beyond the left field fence, and they picked up a lightning strike, but it was quite a while. It was probably another 30 minutes before we actually saw lightning or it quit being sunny, and then there was even a stretch after it just poured rain for a while that the sun came back out. We had a full-fledged rainbow across the sky, all the way to the bottom on each side. So the sun certainly is here most of the time, but man, we had monsoon-type rains for a while last night.
Mike, let's talk a little bit about the importance of this series for Wichita State baseball. as we're looking at seeding for the conference tournament, as we're looking at, how important trying to get, at least taking the series from UCF would be, where do you stand? What do you think about how important this series actually is for Wichita State?
Well, in some ways it's changed a little bit because they only need to win one of the 3 games to clinch the 3rd seed. And so, they certainly want to win the series and they want to sweep the series, but
Right.
They had a pitching plan set up before last night that gave them the optimum chance to do that and still have their pitching staff ready for the tournament next week. And now that has changed a little bit because Clark Candiotti was fully warmed up and even threw a little more as things were getting started, just in case, because it looked like there might just be the 30-minute mandatory lightning delay. And at that time, like I said, the sun was still out, thought they might resume play. So he even threw a little more. So he will not throw today at all. He might possibly throw some tomorrow. They were going to change things up a little bit about how they used Grant Adler this weekend. So now all of that's kind of thrown around. And Peyton Tolley will come out and pitch this game that's resuming, and then they'll split it up in the second game today with Matt Boyer getting the start, but probably going limited innings. And then they're not quite sure what they're going to do tomorrow. So Clark Candiotti, if he feels okay, may throw a little bit tomorrow. Grant Adler might throw an inning or two, kind of the equivalent of a bullpen. So that's the big thing, is the importance of this series has changed a little bit in terms of how they don't want it to affect their pitching for next week, because obviously the big goal here is to win that tournament and get to the NCAA. So the importance of this changes a little other than pride. Certainly they want to finish with the best record possible. This has been a successful season. They'd like to win another series. But I think now the emphasis shifts a little bit to what can we do to try to win this, but more importantly, be sure we're ready to go next week.
Yeah, and Mike Kennedy, voice of the Shockers. Denning, I didn't realize you were on there, Denning. Go ahead.
My fault. No, I was going to say Mike makes a good point. And the interesting thing about this pitching, that the way the Shockers have lined this up, is you start Tolley here in game 1 to try to get that win that you need, and that secures the 3rd seed. From then on out, you can really start to line up your pitching for the conference tournament.
So I want to ask both of you guys this question too. Well, just for some housekeeping, if that conference tournament is in Clearwater and could begin early, will Wichita State come back, or is there any consideration to just stay out there? But then the more important question for me, and Mike, you guys have seen a lot of Shocker baseball. Mike, you've seen a lot of the greatest Shocker baseball. This team feels equipped to me, as we know the path is only through a conference tournament win. This feels like a team that could pitch enough to get a conference tournament win, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And to your question, Wichita State for several years now has been scheduled by the conference to play their last regular season series at one of the 2 Florida schools. Last year it was South Florida. This year we're here at UCF. And that just facilitates moving on over to Clearwater. Everybody has a mandatory practice time on Monday, so there's really only one day in between. So they'll travel over to Clearwater on Sunday, and then they have a practice on Monday. Tournament starts Tuesday, and so it's been that routine. It's a long time on the road. I mean, if Wichita State goes all the way to the championship, that's a week and a half or so on the road, and it's a long time to be gone. But they're out of school now. It's all baseball, and so. It's a routine that I think everybody's gotten used to.
And to finish the point for Mike, as far as the conference tournament goes, what makes this team different from a lot of Shocker teams over the last few years is just that rotation and the way that the pitching sets up for a tournament format. A lot of teams by game 3 of a conference tournament are really starting to scramble. They've used their top 2 starters. They probably use their premium bullpen arms. And so it just becomes kind of a Johnny Holstaff effort from game 3 on out. The Shockers have 3 starters who have started every single weekend game this year. And then a guy in Matt Boyer, who we'll see in this doubleheader, who's been pitching much better as of late in the midweek. So there's a lot of confidence that these arms can carry the Shockers deep into a tournament run.
And let me say beyond that, I think we all started feeling like after Wichita State swept East Carolina that this is a team that has a chance to do something like to actually win this tournament. I mean, every year you go there and there's that thing about, well, it's a whole new season. A lot of times, in your heart, you probably don't have a great chance to actually win the tournament. This year, there's no reason why they can't. I think this Wichita State team is right there, at least pretty much as good as anybody in the conference. The one team they've struggled with has been Houston, but there hasn't been that feeling other than that one inning in Wichita that Houston is significantly better in any way than Wichita State. And back to Denning's point, everybody's going to be splitting it up in their pitching a lot sooner than Wichita State theoretically will be if they get typical performances from their starters.
Guys, going back to that East Carolina series, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, right? When the Shockers were able to take them down, and we were having conversations about, could Wichita State legitimately win the conference? And then at that point, you mentioned the Houston series and all of that. Things kind of cooled off a bit for Wichita State. What is the major thing that Wichita State has to avoid, and be able to get back to where they were during that East Carolina series as they finish up the regular season and get into the conference tournament?
Well, interestingly enough, I think it focuses a little more on hitting than pitching. We just talked about the pitching staff. That stretch where Wichita State beat East Carolina 3 times, that was part of a 9-game stretch where they hit 340 as a team, averaged like over 8 runs a game, and they were playing good competition during that time. And everybody was hot. And then they went through a little 6-game stretch where everybody had kind of cooled off. And over this last weekend, it looked like that was starting to come back. It's hard to sustain that kind of hot streak hitting at any level of baseball for a real long period of time. So my hope is that they are starting to come back to kind of a higher level again, kind of at the top of their game offensively going into the tournament. And I think that with the pitching they'll get, even if their pitchers aren't at absolute top form, it'll give them a chance to win something like that.
Our coaches have used the phrase hot, cold, hot, which basically means you want to get your cold stretch out of the way right before the games start to matter the most. And so hopefully that 6-game run that Mike is referring to where the offense went quiet a little bit was the cold stretch. And now we see the Shockers' best baseball when the games mean the most.
All right. Well, fellas, you guys will have the call soon. We got about a minute left here. We'll hit some housekeeping. We've got you guys here for the doubleheader. Hopefully the Royals on at 7 tonight on KFH. What's on tap here, by the way? Then 4:40 pregame coverage starts of tomorrow's series finale, weather permitting. Sunday, you've got a 1 o'clock Royals game here on KFH as well. I'll be on CBS Sports Radio for everybody with you on that platform Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. So join me for that. That should take you right up to that Royals broadcast. So looking forward to that. Love to get Wichita calls on the national platform. That's it for us this week on Sports Daily. Again, you've got Wichita State baseball coming right now. Mike Denning will take us through a doubleheader. Hopefully the Shockers can get a little momentum going right into the postseason. Shocker softball scheduled to play at 6 o'clock tonight. We'll have it all broken down for you on a Monday edition of Sports Daily. But that's it for us. For Jad Chambers, Tommy Castor, I'm Jacob Albracht. Stick around. You've got Wichita State baseball coming right up.